When you guys say Spinal Tap moments, I go to like really crazy stuff and I have to censor myself a little bit because I'm going to be like giving people away.
Hello, Cleveland! Turn your speakers up to 11 because it's time for Too Much Effing Perspective, the podcast that asks musicians and entertainers to relive the most Spinal Tap moments that may not have been funny when they happened, but are hilarious in retrospect. I'm your host, Alan Keller, former lead singer of the least heralded Chicago band, The Falling Willendas.
And I'm your co-host, Alex Hoffman, former tour manager for Radiohead and former lead singer of the least heralded Milwaukee band, The Vainglorious.
Our guest today is lead singer of the great Los Angeles band Kills Birds, singer Nina Ljeti.
Nina tells us about a time when a producer responded to his unrequited love for her by erasing the band's entire album, what Sonic Youth's Kim Gordon said about their song Worthy Girl, and about the time they opened for the Foo Fighters on what would become Taylor Hawkins' last show with the band. None of those are actually Spinal Tap moments, but hey, we're not running purity tests here.
That's right, thank goodness for that. So without further ado, let's go to the TMEP show!
It really puts perspective on things, though, doesn't it?
Not too much. There's too much effing perspective now.
Alex, before I moved to LA, I had probably never met a celebrity. I mean, the only four I can think of from my days in the Midwest were Vincent Price, Brian Wilson, Bill Clinton, and my favorite of all of those, actually, NBA legend Oscar Robertson.
And didn't you have a very close relationship with, I mean close, with Liberace?
No, you're getting confused
fellow
with
Milwaukeean?
Milwaukee legends. It was actually Fred McMurray.
Oh, from Beaver Dam, Wisconsin.
That's right.
Where I went to middle school. All levity aside, that's a good list.
It is, but since moving to Los Angeles, I've either met or seen up close the following: Warren Beatty, Annette Bening, Steve Martin, Sandra Bullock, Halle Berry, Elizabeth Banks, Margot Robbie, Jeremy Renner, Julie Bowen, Allison Janney, Jordan Peele, Emma Stone, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Jeff Bridges, Lupita Nyong'o. The list goes on and on and on. Honestly, celebrities in Los Angeles are like pollution. They're everywhere.
That is pretty much everyone. I remember living in LA and running into, at the grocery store, Sharon Osbourne, Denise Richards, at church running into Van Dyke Parks, sitting in the pew in front of Dixie Carter and Hal Holbrook. You just never know.
Hal Holbrook, that's a great one. I would have been very excited to meet Hal Holbrook, Mark Twain himself.
Yep, indeed.
And to be honest, I rarely get starstruck. I mean, sure, Jeff Bridges and Philip Seymour Hoffman were pretty cool. But I think the most excited I ever got over a celebrity was when I saw actor John Polito, who was the star of one of my favorite Coen Brothers movies, Miller's Crossing.
Never heard of him.
You probably have never heard of the Coen Brothers, so I'm not surprised. Well, John, unfortunately, is no longer with us. And by the way, he was also in Barton Fink, another great Coen Brothers movie. But when I saw him at the farmer's market in Studio City, I ran up to him like a nut and hugged him. Totally freaked him out.
Yikes.
But his performance in that movie is one of my favorites ever. I mean, I actually said to him, you should have gotten an Oscar for that movie, which I think actually warmed him up a bit. But
you're lucky he didn't Me Too you on that. That's a little over the top.
Oh, he did. He did. He absolutely did. He did unfriend me on Facebook. But who have you met that got your little heart aflutter?
When I was younger, kind of like you, meeting some folks for the first time, we've had Dan Wilson on the show from Semisonic, and I met him back when he was in the band Trip Shakespeare when I was in college, and I hadn't met any rock stars, quote unquote, at that time. So it was really fun to meet him and his brother and the other members of that band. And then I met from another great Midwestern band, Husker Du, met the drummer, Grant Hart, up in Minneapolis, outside of First Avenue.
May he rest in peace.
May he rest in peace. And a buddy of mine and I ended up going to a party with him, drinking some beers and just talking for a long time, hearing about the breakup of Husker Du and how he went through all this heroin addiction, different kinds of things. It was really pretty cool to spend that kind of time. And then,
What about Cheap Trick?
oh, right. Thank you for the reminder. Yeah, I had the Dream Police 45 when I was like 12 or 13 years old. And my first actual paying gig working the music business was for their manager. So I was spending time with Tom Peterson and Robin Zander. So that was really cool. And then probably the biggest star that I met back in those days was Michael Stipe from REM when I was on my first tour with the Bodines. He came to the show when they were in Athens, Georgia and stuff like that. So yeah, those were really fun and memorable.
Those are pretty cool. And I would honestly get excited to meet Cheap Trick to this day. But, I bring this up not just to brag about who I've met and known, but our guest today, Nina Ljeti from Kills Birds, has not only gotten to meet some of her heroes, but a couple of them turn out to be big fans of her music.
Yeah, and what could be effing better than that?
Nothing, I don't think.
I think you're right. So let's get to our really enjoyable chat with Nina. But first, a short break.
And now a singer who has also directed videos for artists like Phoebe Bridgers, Wallows, and Crowded House, Nina Ljeti from Kills Birds. Nina, welcome.
Hello.
I really love the band. Like, Marriage is one of my favorite albums of the last 5 years. I listen to it all the time. It's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. Married.
Married.
It's okay.
Married.
So honestly, I forget too. So yeah.
I want to apologize for that. Anyways, what I want to talk to you about right now is our band names because their origins are very similar. Now, my band was called the Falling Wallendas, and we're named after the High Wire Act family, the Flying Wallendas, specifically the ones who didn't make it, like Carl the Patriarch, who famously died on camera falling while trying to walk across 2 buildings in Puerto Rico. The origins of your band name, Kill Birds, are almost equally morbid, aren't they?
So it's Kills Birds.
Kills Birds, sorry.
Alan, you are over 2'd, buddy.
Wait,
One more strikeout and you are kicked off of this interview.
I was listening to an album, Marriage by Kill Birds, so maybe I got the wrong person.
I heard that they suck, but Married by Kills Birds is good. We have a song on our first record called Worthy Girl, and the first lyric is "This flower kills birds." And when we first started as a band, we were called Nani. And then we went on Spotify and there was like 30 other Nanis, and one of them actually swallowed our first single, Volcano. So there's like a version of Volcano. If you look it up, it goes to this Hawaiian artist named Nani.
Wow.
I looked up Nannies. I was listening to Nannies. Again, I was wrong.
Oh, geez. They also suck.
Damn.
No. But we were kind of thinking about different things. And then Jacob, who plays guitar, also agreed on Kills Birds, which, like, I'm not going to lie. Like, over the years, I've had my moments where I'm like, does this name suck? Currently, I'm like, yes, sort of. But, it's a love-hate relationship.
The Goo Goo Dolls named their band after a Nashville chocolate treat or something like that. It's worked for them for 30 years and millions of album sales.
That's true, yeah.
CBGB's is country, bluegrass, whatever, and they didn't have any country bluegrass bands in there after.
I thought it was Cheap Beer, Good Bands.
That's what it became known as. But no, it was actually country, bluegrass, whatever.
Got it.
Yeah, band names are very difficult. Like, I've told this before, but our first album, one of my bandmates had a very bad reputation in Chicago where we originated. And so I decided, all right, I don't want to tell him just to change his name. So I'm going to act like it's going to be a band thing. So we all took on fake names, and I picked the most ridiculous one. I went with Rumdillion. One word, like some mythical forest creature. And this stupid name was printed on our first album, and it fooled no one. People knew who we were. So when we get interviewed, instead of talking about our music, the interviewers would ask us why we changed our names. And in the end, we decided to reprint our album at great expense, going back to our real names in the liner notes. That's called shooting yourself in the foot, or hoof if you're Rumdillion. So, yeah. I mean, you guys would be more complicated because you have to reprint all your albums if you're going to change your band name.
Yeah. Honestly, I'd be down, but...
You'd be down? Awesome.
Maybe too late. Yeah.
All right. We're going to start out asking you a question that we ask all our guests. What is your favorite scene in the movie This Is Spinal Tap?
Well, obviously, like, the live performance scenes are all amazing, but there's like one that I think of that is... It's like all of them in a room and they all have cold sores, herpes.
Yeah.
And they're just talking to each other. And I don't think that anybody really acknowledges it. When I first saw Spinal Tap when I was in high school, sort of informed the way that I approach comedy in general in my work. But yeah, also the scene where he gets trapped in that pod and he can't get out. There's also the D minor is a really sad chord.
D minor always makes me weep.
And it's called Lick My Love Pump.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an amazing movie. I love it.
Well, it's interesting that you said they all had this lip trauma that they didn't acknowledge, right? Did you ever acknowledge your lip trauma on the video for Rabbit, where there's one scene where you have a bloody lip?
Oh, that's so funny. No, I don't think that I ever really publicly acknowledged it, but it's a real thing. What happened was I was thrashing around and I slammed my head into the camera rig.
Ooh.
I didn't even realize that I was bleeding because we were in the middle of a take and the themes of the song are really emotional for me. So I didn't even notice it until we cut. And then it just so happened that that ended up as a shot in the video. I wasn't fighting for it or anything. And I was worried for a second. People would be like, oh, she faked it. Oh, it's not real. But I genuinely injured myself.
Crazy.
I have a permanent mark from it.
Oh, really?
On my gums.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you had anything like that happen in a live show?
All the time. I'm often humbled after a show just because I'll be thrashing around, I'll be slamming my knees into the ground, and then I'll end up walking away with pretty major back pain. And then I am reminded that I'm not 24 anymore. But in terms of a bigger injury outside of that, no, I've been pretty lucky. I used to wear wraps on my knees during the Foo Fighters tour because I was running around like the big stages and injuring my knees. So there's photos of me wearing like weird outfits that involve that. Yeah.
That's so great. There was this band from Milwaukee, Wisconsin called Big Bang Theory, and I managed them for a while. And the singer was a pretty dynamic performer, and he used a lot of classic grandiose stage moves. And he did something with the mic, and he missed it. And the mic smashed right into his teeth and broke his front teeth.
Oh, that's gnarly.
You're going to give him credit for that when I actually almost was crippled. My first Spinal Tap moment was falling off the stage in Milwaukee. I jumped off the stage and I had platform shoes on that were brand new and they were really slick. And I hit a Lucite dance floor and I flipped completely over and cracked my head on the ground. And I've had spinal damage ever since. So we always say our best Spinal Tap moment was actual spinal damage.
Wait. Why were you wearing platform shoes? Was that the style? Like what
I had
kind
a big
of
plaid suit on and a big platform shoes.
Oh, interesting.
Alan used to go shopping on Melrose. He had money back in those days.
Well, that's not exactly true.
He was a stock guy and had money to spend on fancy clothes.
Wait, you were a yuppie.
I was a punk yuppie.
There you go.
But I want to set the record straight. Anytime I would come to Los Angeles on band business from Chicago, I would go to this clothing store, Lord's, on Melrose. It's not there anymore. And they made a lot of custom clothes for rock stars and rock videos. And they'd always have used or damaged items from their shoots at a discount. So I would occasionally buy something that was not full price. And if something wasn't damaged and I saw it in the window, I would throw a brick through the window and damage it myself. And then I could come back the next day and scoop it up at a lower price. I was very cunning back then.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he's lying to you.
Oh, he's lying.
But I'll tell you, this is a Spinal Tap moment that Alan and I experienced together. So I tour managed a band called the Bodines out of Milwaukee that was on Warner Brothers. And they had a hit in 96, which was called Closer to Free, which was the theme song for a show called Party of Five. And so they got invited to a lot of cool different things that summer. One of them was, oddly enough, playing on the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards. And we were at the hotel going to get picked up in a limo. Alan was there with me. Alan was dressed more like a rock star than anybody in the band or me. And I asked the guys if it was cool if he rode along with us to the show. And they said, sure, just make sure he sits up front. He had to sit up in the front with the driver while the rest of us sat in the back of the limo. I think we even put the divider up.
Not to steal their cool.
Bruno Kirby.
We're going to talk about ourselves, not Nina, but I was on the set
Sorry,
of
Nina.
Scrubs, that show with what's that guy? Yeah. My friend was directing it. And I was just really dressed up because back then I always dressed up.
He looked cool. He actually looked really cool.
Thank you. But it was the day and I'm like dressed ridiculously rocking. And Donald Faison and who's the main guy?
Zach Braff.
Yeah, Zach Braff. And I see them, they're talking to my friend, they're pointing to me and stuff. And I go, what did they say? They go, they're just wondering who the fuck you are and why you're dressed like that. So
were you wearing like another suit and platform shoes?
Yes, I was wearing.
Similar?
Yeah,
Okay,
I was all decked out. Anyways, in Spinal Tap, they get a bunch of bad reviews, and one of them was on what day did the Lord create Spinal Tap, and couldn't he have rested on that day too, right? You guys, on the other hand, I didn't find one bad review anywhere. Matter of fact, I found a great review from Kim Gordon. She said, Worthy Girl is hot as fuck, which is so Kim Gordon and so cool.
Kim Gordon's awesome, for sure. Yeah, I love Kim Gordon.
Can you tell us any Spinal Tap moments with Kim?
Kim Gordon from Sonic Youth, for those who may not know.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I don't. Like, I see her at the grocery store. That's about as rock and roll as it gets. That was something that Justin Raisin, who produced our first record, sort of like orchestrated because he was working with her. We've always had sign-offs from people that I've always looked up to, like Hayley Williams being a huge hero of mine, being a fan of our band, and obviously Dave Grohl. There's a lot of Spinal Tap moments with Dave Grohl and life on tour with the Foo Fighters.
Like you played Mexico City with them, right? That must have been a huge show.
It was a really beautiful show, and tragically, it was the last headline show that the Foos played before Taylor passed away. So that always has a lot of deep meaning to me. I actually have a tattoo of their song Aurora here, because when we were touring with them over those few months, that song was in their rotation, and I'd never heard it before, and I loved it so much. Like, something about the way that song sounds truly summarized the feeling of being back on the road during COVID, watching the Foo Fighters play. Like, Nirvana's my favorite band. I would never make music if I didn't hear them or have access to them as a kid. So they started dedicating that song to us, and they dedicated it to us on that Mexico City show. But the first night that we opened for them was in Las Vegas, and Gene Simmons walked into the room and came up to Fielder,
Awesome.
who's the bass player, and was like, "How's your mom doing? Tell her I say hi."
Oh, you're
Or something
kidding.
like that. Like, just fully walked
Cheesy.
in, like, so cheesy, but also so awesome, because if anybody's going to receive that kind of comment, it has to be Fielder, because he was just like, "Oh yeah, man, like, she's doing great. Like, thanks for asking." Like, just like so chill. So that was great. I think Jason Sudeikis was there one night. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
That Gene story is really great. Tommy Stinson from The Replacements gave us a great Gene story of actually him coming to see them at CBGB and walking out really pissed off when they butchered Black Diamond in their drunken stupor. But
Very cool.
there had to be some other just funny mishap moments on tour with Foo Fighters.
Oh my God. I mean, I'm the only girl in the band, so I'm going to look at it from the perspective of funny things that happened to me. Like, after playing Mexico City, I was very emotional. First big show, people were really into it. Jacob and Griffin wanted to go out and celebrate, so they just go to this taco spot near our Airbnb, and it resulted in the most horrific food poisoning that I've ever seen a human go through. I think after 10 days of suffering, Griffin actually had to get antibiotics. What else? I mean, getting drunk backstage after that show and like after shows with the Foos was like obviously great. Ordering pizza. Dave had this one woman come in whose name I can't remember. She was incredibly lovely, though. I'm a huge fan of the Beastie Boys. It's one of my favorite bands. Actually, the only time I think I would ever get starstruck is if I met Adam Horovitz or Mike D. Yeah, and I have an MCA tattoo for MCA.
Oh, nice.
And I was standing with Dave and this woman, and we're just chatting, and she's like, "Is that an MCA tattoo?" And I was like, yeah. I love them. And then Dave was like, "I didn't know you had that. That's weird." And then she's like, yeah, he was my roommate and my best friend for like 2 decades. And half the photos in like the Beastie Boys Spike Jones books, she took them or something. And I was
Wow.
so fucking mortified at first because it's like, I have your friend who passed away's stage name tattooed on my arm, but she was actually really cool about it. And I kind of explained to her why I love Adam Yauch and why he's so important to me as an artist. But that was really weird. Yeah. But the Foo Fighters, compared to going on tour with the Viagra Boys and Shame, tame, PG, G-rated. They're such wild and crazy guys. They're so cool. Like, Sebastian is the singer. He's a sweetheart. I just love him. Everybody in that band is incredible. And the guys from Shame, too. It was such a funky tour. It was so weird. And we're like a pretty serious band, okay? Like, we don't like party too much on tour. I have to protect my voice, you know, things like that. But then we're with Shame and Viagra Boys who like on the spectrum are so different from us. And I was the only girl on the tour as well, which is a thing. Like to all
It is a thing.
It's a thing. Like it really changes how you interact with people. So for the first week, I was like, what the fuck have I just gotten myself into? Like, what is going on here? There was just so much chaos, but then I relinquished control and had some of the best times of my life with those guys. And the film that I wrote that I'm now developing, I wrote on that tour because it was so important, that entire experience.
That's really interesting because I also wrote my first screenplay based on a tour. We were going to South by Southwest and it was a total clusterfuck.
Have you ever seen the movie Hardcore Logo?
No.
Yeah, so I just finished the Film Independent Screenwriter Program.
Cool. Congratulations. That's very nice to get into.
Thank you. And it was for this film about a band. It's a horror film, drama horror. And one of our advisors, Ruth Atkinson, she's Canadian. She's like, have you ever seen this movie called Hardcore Logo? It's a mockumentary about a Canadian punk band that reunites after a decade away from something and does a short tour across Western Canada. And I didn't realize what an impact it had. Quentin Tarantino loved it so much. He helped get it distributed. And I watched it and it's incredible. I highly recommend it. It like really captures that experience.
There's also a movie, Alex, do you remember the movie that's a real documentary, not a mockumentary? And it was very...
Anvil.
Was it Anvil? Yeah, it was Anvil.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
You know what's funny about Anvil? So I was born in Bosnia, right? I don't really have music family or anything. No one really plays music. But when we immigrated to Canada, my aunt came with us and she met and married my uncle, Uncle Jeff, who is the man that introduced me to thrash metal when I was a kid. He had a thrash metal band in Canada called Wicked Angel. And they toured with Anvil all the time. So he's actually really good friends with those guys. And he's funny because he has a fear of flying. So they never quite made it because they never left Canada and the US. As a consequence, he got to tour with Anvil.
Oh, that's funny.
That is so great. That is so great. Well, I want to go back to you said very casually, I was the only girl on the tour.
Yeah.
And I think back to the tours that I was on. Polly Harvey was the only woman with us. We had a pretty small touring party, but we were on the bus. And I mentioned the Bodines before. One of our tours, Sheryl Crow was actually opening for the Bodines before her first record really took off. She was the only woman on the tour for several weeks. And then I toured this band called The Chills out of New Zealand, and we had one woman in the band. And in fact, that poor woman thought she was getting her own hotel room, which seemed reasonable. And when the band flew in from New Zealand, they had already had a rough go kind of in Australia. They flew into the United States. I met them at the airport, and the lead guy, Martin Phillips, said to the manager who was here in Los Angeles, he said, I really need my own hotel room. So I had to tell this woman that, surprise, you're going to be roommates with me. Because I had the only open space. And she was not that thrilled about it. We didn't even know each other. But anyway, I say all that only because I'm curious, what other kind of weird Spinal Tap moment situations have you run into by virtue of being the only woman on the road?
It's funny to say Spinal Tap because they obviously turn these things into jokes like that, misogyny or whatever. You've got an album cover with, a girl and she's like sniffing a glove, and that's funny.
Yeah, getting confused about the difference between sexist and sexy, right?
Yeah.
A little unclear on those things. But anyway.
First, I want to preface and say like that the guys in Kills Birds have always been extremely protective of me.
Can you say the names of the guys in the band? Because they're going to come up and people should know.
Okay, so there's Jacob Loeb, who I write a lot of the music with, especially the early stuff. He plays guitar. And then there's Fielder Thomas, sweetheart, a golden retriever, plays bass. And then Griffin Kisner is the incredible drummer in our band. They're a wonderful group of guys. I love them so much. They've always been extremely protective of me. And every tour I've been on, like with the guys from Shame, Bagger Boys, Foo Fighters, everybody's been like so kind, so understanding. I can't stress that enough. It's, the weird people that you meet on the road. We had this one guy, we were playing a show in Los Angeles. We were loading in at 4 p.m. and he had been standing outside since like 2 p.m. with a bouquet of flowers and a cutout photo of me and the band that he said he put on his fridge. And he was like waiting for me to arrive. And like he shows up and I can feel Jacob and Fielder behind me like, who the fuck is this guy? And like not so great stories of really like crazy producers. There was this one producer that we worked with on what was initially going to be our debut before we re-recorded it with Justin, who straight up deleted our record.
Whoa.
Because he told me that he was in love with me. And I was like, no, and didn't want to go and spend time alone with him in his studio after that. Of course, who would do that?
Right.
The record totally got deleted. He was pissed off. There's a lot of that. It's just like a consequence of being in this industry. It's just part of it. There's been a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah. And to be super clear, thank you for sharing that, by the way. And we know, we have had some extraordinary conversations with people ranging from, Nancy Wilson from Heart to Carrie Brownstein and Corin Tucker from Slater-Kinney and gotten different flavors of this kind of stuff. And by the way, these are not Spinal Tap moments, right?
No.
They're not going to be funny anytime, right? So let's be super clear about that.
I've interviewed women in our show and they'll be the front person, but the sound guy won't ever ask them what they want, right? They'll talk to the guys. Like her opinion doesn't matter, even if she's the leader of the band.
Yeah, or like the sound guy that like is telling me how I need to be holding and singing into my microphone because it makes the sound better. And you're like, okay, bro, like, what are you doing here? Like, relax. This is like a 100-cap venue, like chill. But things like that can be funny, but also like not so funny, obviously. But a lot of female musicians that I talk to bond over these experiences, this navigating. I'm not going to say who this is, but there's this one rock star guy. Can I say off the record?
Well, keep it anonymous. Just share the story, please.
Okay, then no off the record. You're just not going to hear his name. He was like, your band's good, but you need to embrace your sexiness. Like if you're on stage, you should be wearing sexy clothes and really lean into being a hot woman. That's how you're going to get famous. And I was like, okay. Like, really good advice. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Gene Simmons.
It wasn't Gene Simmons.
You would definitely say that.
Yeah.
You were en route to South by Southwest when COVID hit, right?
Yeah.
And did you ever hear of the band Moonkissed?
No.
They were from New York and they had to do a total U-turn back on their way from South by Southwest because COVID hit. And then they didn't know where to go because they were going back to New York. Remember, New York was the first super spreader area, right? So they were kind of lost in America. Tell us about that experience.
Well, it was pretty devastating and heartbreaking, as I'm sure it was for every up-and-coming artist. We were like a spotlight artist. NPR was covering us. We had all of these different showcases. Things really seemed like they were lining up for us. And then we were on tour with Hot Snakes and found out right before we were about to sound check for one of those shows. So we were also pretty lost at that point. We had a West Coast tour that we were finishing out with them, and that still ended up happening. But we noticed as we were going from Seattle down to San Diego, the crowds were dwindling like pretty significantly. By the time we got to Fresno, I think there was like 14 people in the audience, and then San Diego was like completely partitioned. And it was just scary. Like we were supposed to, speaking of Kim Gordon, that would have been the year that we would have opened for her at a show. That was the year where we were talking about playing Europe for the first time. So that all sort of went out the window. And we, to make ourselves feel better, like stopped somewhere in Oregon. It was snowing and we just made snow angels, me and Jacob, just to kind of, and then our drummer at the time was like, get in the car. This is so dangerous. Like, get in the car. We get in the car and then he's like, only I can drive. I trust myself. He was pretty shaken up with COVID and he gets on the highway and he's on the wrong side of the highway. And we were like, only you can drive.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
So that was funny. Yeah.
Oh, boy.
The irony is that we all found out later scientifically that snow angels cause COVID. So, you know.
I know. It's Randy with the pangolin in South Park.
Right. Totally.
Randy.
Well, okay. So I want to go to your second skill set. You're also a filmmaker. You directed videos for Soko, the French pop star. You've done it for Crowded House and Phoebe Bridgers. Any Spinal Tap moments that you can tell us about shooting videos for people?
Phoebe and I, when we shot Kyoto, the initial idea was supposed to be that the first half was shot pre-COVID, shot on a green screen. And she's like in fake Tokyo. And then we're supposed to go to Tokyo and Kyoto and shoot the rest of it. That happened like a week before COVID happened. So I had to finish the whole thing on my own. Shooting Crowded House was really funny because Mac DeMarco was the lead in that video.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so Neil Finn never actually made an appearance. He didn't want to, he loved the concept. Obviously, he backed it. I had several meetings with him and his two sons and the rest of the band. But he didn't want to be in it. So it was Mac DeMarco who was the lead. And us filming, like, you know, scenes of him on the toilet, reading a magazine, like talking to inanimate objects, like dancing in slow motion. It was pretty fun.
Mac DeMarco was the star of a Crowded House video?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
odd. I love Crowded House.
I do too.
So incredible. They're really kind people,
that's
genuine people. And they were very supportive. And I was friends with Mac at the time, and Neil's friends with Mac, and it just kind of worked out. We just kind of got the team together. It was like during COVID in 2020, sort of made sense, yeah. But I've worked on a lot of projects with a lot of different celebrities, and I guess that's probably like the Spinal Tap kind of element of it, of just egos and divas and you know, interesting kind of things. Yeah.
You have a career to pursue, so we'll be coy about the names. I understand.
Definitely.
Subtle.
Definitely. I have to.
We respect that. Setting personalities aside, are there any kinds of things on the set, like effects that went wrong or just, you know, things along those lines?
Well, yeah, I was actually laughing about this with the DP that I always work with, David Bullen. He's incredible. We've done a lot of really funny shoots together. And something that we did, it was a 12-minute promotional video for Wallows for their Live Nation concert tour. And it was 12 pages of a script that we had to shoot in one day at the Forum. So it was like kind of The Shining meets Twin Peaks at the Forum, 80 different shots, different setups. And to be honest, it's a blur to me because I was shooting, but David was like, you get in this flow state. So essentially, I'm the joke here. I get into this flow state where, like, to save time, I'll stop cutting and I'll just prompt people. And apparently I'm like, do this, but like be more angry and run and jump around, like be more sexy in this. And then there's crew members running across the floor, setting up practical lights and like me jumping over things to try to make it work. And a band or these actors just totally trusting me, but like very often totally completely confused. But I love doing that so much. That's like my favorite thing in the world. Is just like, I mean, I'm shooting a video in a couple weeks. You start rolling bands in it. It's like actors are in it, and it's just like, let's fucking go crazy. I did something really embarrassing at the Nick Cave show. Eugene Hutz from Gogo Bordello was sitting in front of me, and I loved them when I was in high school. But I was like, I simply have to speak with him. Like, I have to. And keep in mind, like, my job at Vogue, I've met a lot of celebrities There's a few that I get starstruck for. He's one of them. He gets up and starts to leave, and I did the psycho fan thing, and I jetted out of my seat and followed behind him, tapped him on the shoulder. He's like aware that I've been following him. He turns around, and then I'm just like, I have no idea what to say. So I'm just like, you're yeah, my favorite. Like I literally looked like a crazy person. And he was just like, thank you so much, but I'm waiting for somebody right now. Like, thank you so much. And I was like, no. And then I was texting with my friend who's like really good friends with him. They played music together. And I was like, what do I say? He's like, don't worry, he's really nice. And then I was like, my friend is your friend. He was just like, okay. God. And then I left.
That's so crazy.
Met up with my boyfriend on the other side of Barclays, and I was like, we need to leave. This is terrible.
We had on Zia McCabe from Dandy Warhols, and she's absolutely in love with Willie Nelson. And so they were playing Glastonbury, yeah, and David Bowie's there and this and that, but Willie Nelson's there. And she's actually got her hair in pigtails like Willie. That's how she loves it. And she goes, Willie's here? And I guess she said he was playing in the afternoon because he's not as a big deal in Britain, right? So she goes there to meet him, and she goes up to Willie, and she started bawling. And she couldn't even get out of it. I can't, I love you so much. And he hugged her and he said, that's all right, honey, I got you. And then she met someone who was crying later that day, a girl who was so happy to see her. And she hugged her and said, I got you.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
The other week, I was having lunch at this like cafe near my house, and I saw Mike D there. And I was wearing a shirt, and you could see my tattoo. And I didn't say hi to him. I couldn't. There's no way. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to humiliate myself at my local cafe. But my body literally froze up. And it's actually kind of nice because you forget. Like, as you get older, you stop being so much of a fangirl for different people. Like, I don't think I've felt that way since I saw NSYNC in Detroit when I was like 10.
Alan's hero is Elvis Costello, and tell her that story.
Yeah, I got to meet Elvis in 2019. My friend's friends with him, and Elvis gave us first row center seats at Forest Hills in New York, and I'm going to meet him afterwards. I'm like, I'm not going to say to him that he's the reason why I'm a musician. That would be so stupid. As soon as I met him, I'm like, you are the reason. And he goes, is that good? Thinking like, if I suck, it's horrible. I said, I don't know. I know how that is.
So the first time I went to visit Dave at his studio 606, he was like, Killsbirds should come and record their next record here. We ended up doing that. The following week, I like went to some charity party where the surviving members of Nirvana were like playing a couple songs for charity. I went backstage. I met Chris Novoselic, which was awesome because him and I speak the same language.
Oh, that's cool.
He's Croatian and I'm Bosnian. So that was a nice little moment. But I'm backstage with Dave, and this very like fiery, spunky lady is talking to Dave, and Dave introduces me to her. And the way that he introduces me to her is like, I can't remember what he said, is like, you know, Rita, somehow she's associated with Dimebag Darrell. And I'm talking to her, I'm like, oh my God, Dimebag Darrell, like, that's so cool. Like, I love Pantera. My uncle got me into them, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, thank you so much. Like, you should come to the festival. And at some point I stopped, I was like, so yeah, like, he was your dad? And she was like, ha, 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 ha. And I know, honey, but I love you for saying that. It was his wife. It was his wife. And I was like, I'm a fucking idiot. Like, that's so obviously the case. But she was so nice. She gave me her number.
But that's what you say, right? Of course, yeah, you wouldn't say, no, he's your son, right?
No,
so
but
that
I
would
fucking
be the...
straight up thought that I was like, I like forgot what decade I was in. That was really funny. But
that's a good one, though. That one went the right direction.
That is a good one.
When we were at 606, the engineer, he was like, hey, like, do you guys like want to just come back here for a second? And they were digitizing all of these old Nirvana rehearsal tapes. And he was like, oh, yeah, like this hasn't been played since they recorded it. And he put it on, and it was like one of the very first recordings of Heart-Shaped Box that they made when they were rehearsing in South America. So like he doesn't even know the lyrics. It's so rough. And it's so funny in that moment because I looked over at my bandmates and they were so emotional, and I did not have an emotional reaction at all because I think it transcended my ability to have an emotion into something that was like, just like It'll probably hit me when I'm 65 and I'll be like, holy shit, that was crazy. It was amazing. Yeah, Dave has so many stories about that.
We're big Beatles fans. My bandmate played with Brian Wilson for 10, 15 years. And they were in the UK, and Giles Martin, George Martin's son, said, come on into Abbey Road. I'll play something. So he got to go to Abbey Road. Giles put the original Sgt. Pepper tracks on the board and then singled out everybody's parts for him.
Wow.
So he just got to listen to the raw stuff from Sgt. Pepper.
That's so cool. That is so
That
cool.
is cool.
Yeah.
This has been really fun, Nina. Thank you for this much of your time and your wonderful stories. How can our listeners keep up on Kills Birds and the things that you guys are up to?
Oh, just listen to us on Spotify. Follow us on Instagram.
And you have a newish album out, which is Crave, right?
Yeah, it came out.
Or EP?
EP came out a month ago. I'm headed to New York to work on my feature. Jacob just became a firefighter for Los Angeles County, which I'm so proud of. It was an incredible accomplishment for him. So we're taking some time to focus on our families, to focus on our projects. But I'm really excited for us to get back together.
When there are tour dates, you post them on Instagram and communicate about your live shows?
Everything, yeah. Or my personal Instagram, because I have to have one for my work. Nina Ljeti.
Nina, it was really fun. As I've said, I'm a big fan of the band.
Thank you.
And even though I don't know the name of the band nor the title of their albums exactly, I seem to be able to find them. But really a pleasure having you on.
Thank you, Nina.
Nice meeting you too. Bye. Thank you.
Listeners, there were a lot of valuable lessons in that conversation. Let's see. Avoid taco stands in Mexico City. If you see one of your favorite stars out in the wild, don't stalk. Respectfully observe from a distance and maybe get their name tattooed somewhere on your body. And finally, if Gene Simmons from Kiss asks you, how's your mom doing? Just politely thank him for asking. He really cares. Thanks to Nina Ljeti for a fun chat and dishing out her funny stories. Too Much Effing Perspective is a Milwaukee Talkies original. Our editor is Gretchen Kilby. Our music composer is J.K. Harrison. Please follow us on Instagram at TMEP Show. Visit our website at tmepshow.com to sign up for our mailing list. And find our other episodes featuring rock stars, comedians, and entertainment luminaries whose bizarro stories we enjoy and we think you will too on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen.
Although it would be as great as having armadillos in our trousers, this podcast is not affiliated with This Is Spinal Tap, and no person or entity connected with the film has sponsored or endorsed its content. This podcast is not affiliated, sponsored, or licensed by Authorized Spinal Tap LLC or Century of Progress Productions.
Evergreen Podcast Network.